When it comes to urinary leakage, the pelvic floor gets blamed for a lot. But a lot of times when women are leaking urine during exercise, it's not always just the pelvic floor's fault. It's not always just pelvic floor weakness. It's really other areas in your body that are not performing as best as they could or should, and therefore the pelvic floor has to do more or put up with more force, and therefore it becomes fatigued or tired more quickly. My name is Dr. Jocelyn Conley. I'm a pelvic floor physical therapist, the founder of the Vagina Docs, and in this video, I'm gonna go over 4 foundational exercises for your foot and ankle that will help you with developing some prerequisite strength and overall performance so that you ultimately have less problems with urinary leakage during exercise, such as jumping and running, and then other exercises that you may be doing in something like CrossFit. The first thing I'm gonna cover is the foundational single leg balance. After that, we're gonna cover calf raises, step ups, and then a banded walking sort of series so that you can see a full spectrum of how you may begin to just adjust your training. The first thing I'm gonna cover is single leg balance. You know, a lot of us skip this because it's not sexy, but mastering the single leg balance and being able to describe how you execute your single leg stability or single leg balance can completely change your training, because the single leg balance is a foundation for things like step ups, walking lunges, running, single leg jumping. And there's many ways that you can train your stability on one leg to basically to be tailored towards whatever thing that you want to do. The first thing I want you to do is stand on one leg and flex your opposite leg to about 90 degrees. And pay attention to what your strategy is to stay standing with your hips level and your spine in neutral. As you take note of that, just keep that in the back of your mind. Then I want you to pay attention what happens with your breathing. Does it stop? Try to keep your breathing steady. Third, I want you to pay attention to how much you're engaging your abdominals. Is it necessary to engage as much as you are engaging? Next, what is your knee doing? Make sure it stays straight. If you find that you can't accomplish any of those tasks that I just mentioned, I want you to hold on to something with your hand on the side that's opposite of the hip that's lifted. Okay, let's focus on your foot now. As you're balancing, press your big toe down into the floor and make sure your heel is also into the floor. What do you feel? How does that change your balance? Once you do that, see it, and you're able to do that, great, you're gonna move on to the next step. If you can't, just focus on that. Focus on keeping your big toe and then the rest of the toes pressing down, and work on keeping your toe knuckles in the middle of your toes straight. The reason being is we want to keep I want your foot core to be engaged. This is a way to engage the foot core. Now, the next step would be to almost try to lift your arch up off the floor. If it helps, you might want to slide a pen underneath your foot to see, or a coin, and see if you can decrease the pressure off the coin as you do this. As you work on this, you might feel like your foot wants to cramp, and that's okay. That's pretty typical if it's a new movement. So again, what you're gonna do is you're gonna balance on one foot, opposite hip flex to 90-ish, hips are level, and your spine is in neutral. You're gonna pay attention what your preferred strategy is. Oh, many people are like, I'm just balancing. I feel it in my ankle a little bit. Second thing is pay attention to your breathing. You should be able to breathe, not hold your breath. The third thing is to make sure that you're not over bracing your abs. You're just bracing just as you need to stay up and balanced. And then if you can't do those things, to hold on to something. Then you're gonna press your big toe and then the rest of your toes down into the floor. You have about 50% of pressure through your toes and then 50% through your heels. Pay attention to how this changes your preferred strategy. Do you feel more in your foot? Do you feel more in your glutes? What's happening? Then if you can do that, try to lift up your arch a little bit. This engages more of your foot core, and your foot core is connected to your pelvic floor, so you don't have to think about your pelvic floor, hopefully, as much. Now, as you get that down, how I typically prescribe it to people as an activity, it just depends, but I work it in circuits, or I say, okay, until you master this, I want you to practice this daily, accumulate 90 seconds to 120 seconds on each side in whatever position you can maintain. And then we progress it or regress it as necessary.